Larkin Avenue in Elgin, and 555 Willow in West Dundee. They're proud to keep your car clean while giving back to our community. Text BRITT to 30400. That's BRITT to 30400. Now for your free car wash. And see why Britain's touchless car wash is the fast, gentle, and reliable choice.
Fix bayonets, comrades. This is Chief Guarded Republic Radio Show with your co-host Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid every Saturday noon until 2 on WRMN 1410 AM on the AM dial. You could go to WRMN1410.com, listen live or YouTube live. You go to WRMN 1410's YouTube channel. Our call-in number here is 847-931-1410. Or you can text us in on the 505-926-1410. Or you can make comments on the YouTube live channel. Make the comments there. So Paul's not with us today. You know, massive weather down south and everything. And plus he's celebrating other things. He'll be with us next week. I think we're going to talk about trains. But to start it out, hey, happy 250th. I would use the Latin terms and everything else, but there's 3 Latin terms, you know, depending on how you do the math. So I'll just say in English, happy 250th birthday to the America that was founded by the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, not January. It wasn't the fiscal or fraternal year, January 1st to December 31st, 1776. It was on July 4th, 1776. Previous to that, there were several letters sent to the king, and he was like, hey, you know, lay off with this stuff. Help us out. Give us representation. We really still want to be part of you, but we want equal rights. And the Parliament, the House of Lords, the House of Commons, and the King decided that they took no notice because arrogance, you know, and then they learned their lesson. So, yeah, starting out, you know, and I'm going to try to make some analogies into what's going on today on how things worked out, how we had this revolution and how it was pretty successful, even though it was hard fought for like 7 years. A long time there. It went from like the first shots at Concord, I believe, was in I write these things down in weird order. Lexington and Concord. So like the official start of the war, the Revolutionary War, would have been on 19th of April, 1775, when the first shots were fired. The British were moving to seize weapons caches. Some people say, it's cache, not cache. I'm like, forget it. I'm going to say cache because it just sounds better. What do you think?
I say cache too.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I say.
I had this bimbo colonel that used to go, cash. It's cash. And I'm like, cache. And so they're moving, and that's when you had that nice ride of Paul Revere, where he went down and told everyone, and then they organized and they put a blocking action against the British. And they say that they were just lined up for a while, you know, with this standoff, and then someone sneezed. No one knows who shot the shot, but the shot went off, and that was it. That led to the battle that ensued. Like, so you look at, I'm looking at it with the special operations imperatives, all right, and how this came about. So you have a young country. I mean, it's been around since 1608. You know, the I would say that's the Jamestown, right? The Jamestown settlements in Virginia there, all right? So 1608, you start getting people over, and now they start having settlements and everything. And These guys were working. They were farming. They had fertile land. They had, fur trapping and everything. It was all going on there, and they're organizing towns, and they're organizing ports, and they're trading with the British Empire, which is, at this time, was booming. The Dutch were booming. The Dutch were actually a sea power at the time, doing a lot of trade, and there was a lot of money to be made because you had no competition. No one was undercutting you. You did that stuff, and so it very rapidly grew. And people were coming over from Europe because Europe was getting a little crowded. All the good jobs were taken or given to people's kids. All the good farmland was taken, and it was just hereditary. It was just going down. So, if you're one of these peasant farmers, with the elimination of with serfdom kind of being eliminated, and you don't have your own land and you're sharecropping and you're busting your butt for someone else, and you hear that you just go over there, the United States. And a lot of these guys came over as indentured servants, yes, which is pretty much you sign your life. I'll be a slave for 7 years. You're not getting paid. You're a servant. They pay your way over there for 7 years. You work for free for them, and then suddenly you're free. Maybe. But where's the money? So a lot of these guys had to, pick up some money or just move a little west. And that comes into the discussion a little later of why they had the Revolutionary War also. So the French, being a power in the Napoleonics and up against the British, the French and the Spanish up against the British, everyone fighting for resources in the New World, especially North America, because Spain and Portugal pretty much had South America under control. So the French decide that they're going to move, they're going to force their way, they're going to block, actually, they're blocking the expansion of the British moving west. All right. So they ally themselves with the Native Americans, the Indian tribes, and to fight the British moving west. At the same time, the British ally themselves with other Native American tribes that don't like the Native American tribes that the French have allied themselves with. And these tribes are kind of being used as pawns in the war. And that's where you'll hear the French and Indian War, right? So what the French were fighting the British. But that's just an extension, right? It's an extension of the 7 Years' War going on in Europe at the time between the French and the British. So now, it wasn't just the Indians that the British were using. The British had their colonial forces. They had a militia. The militia, which we've discussed this, are just your local guys working wherever. They're required to have a rifle, so many rounds of ammunition. And when they're called to defend the town or to defend the colony, their local legislature calls them in. The local governor says, hey, we need these guys, we got to fight off these Indians incurring on the border. And they call these guys up, and they're only required to go out there, stand in formation, fire 2 shots, and then they can leave. So it's like, go up there, stand in formation, fire 2 shots. They weren't really taken seriously. But after a while of working with professional British soldiers, professional British leaders, and some of our own educated and more militaristic guys like George Washington, right? So George Washington fought with the British, right? He was a British officer against the French. And he had they credit George Washington with the first military action of the British against the French when him and his militia guys jump a bunch of French scouts. They ambush them. And they say that's like the first battle. So here we go with George Washington there. But that's in 1754 to, I wrote down the dates. Oh, there we go. 1754 to 1763. So that's the time of the French and Indian War. All right, and after all this fighting and everything, the British have a lot of success, finally, and they come to, there's a treaty called this is the first Treaty of Paris, all right, in 1763, and everything east of the Mississippi, which is Illinois, Wisconsin, to Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi. Was Mississippi?
I think. Well, let me see. I think.
Yeah,
it is.
Mississippi, Louisiana. No, not Louisiana. Not Louisiana was later. All right, so Mississippi. There's Mississippi, Alabama, and all the way up to Florida.
Yeah,
right?
North Carolina, South Carolina, right?
Well, no, those are original colonies.
Oh, okay.
All right, but you have things like Illinois will later become, Ohio will later become a state, Michigan will later become a state, Wisconsin will later become a state, but those areas were all ceded to the British after in the treaty. But the British, not wanting to anger their Native American allies, one of the things they put in, you hear about the Tea Party and the taxes. One of the things they put down on the colonies, the Americans, the North Americans here, us, ancestors, they're like, okay, you cannot move west of the Appalachians. Right, so you're already getting kind of crowded. All the farmland, most of the good farmland that's cleared out that isn't heavily forested or heavily mountained, right, is already been taken because you've been around for like over 160 years, right? Yep. So that's quite a few generations spreading out and everything, and people coming, immigrants coming in, more people coming over from Great Britain. So if I just got over there and I'm thinking, oh man, all I got to do is move west where no one lives, set up my little fortress of solitude or whatever, set up my log cabin, defend myself from the Native Americans, or I make friends with the Native Americans so they leave me alone, trade with them, or even with a group of people, like a big wagon train, bring them out there. I can't go because the British said that's against the law. It's against their law now. And what am I going to do? I wanted to be a gentleman farmer out there. I wanted to break the sod. I wanted to get huge crops of corn, wheat, and everything else in. And now I'm sharecropping on some, rocky pasture on the edge of a cliff in Pennsylvania. I'm like, so you have a lot of disenfranchised people. The other thing was, they say it was expensive to defend the frontier, but there were British troops. You had to pay the troops. They came over here. But a lot of the fighting was done by the Native Americans and your colonies, your militia guys, and the guys. Oh, I forget the term, but they had a standing army. Like, okay, so they had the militia, and then when they found good guys in militia, they kind of drafted them to fight with the British for a year. So they weren't just called up to fire their 2 shots. These guys became like professional soldiers for a year, like they're drafted. So by the end of 9 years of warfare, they've gotten pretty good at it, all right? Mm-hmm. So they're professional soldiers. And the British, again, in their arrogance, not realizing that, wow, we trained a force that stood up to the French, and now we've ignored them like they're nothing because we have that arrogance that without our redcoats there, our professional army there, they can't really do anything. Mm-hmm. But George Washington had already proved that a little bit wrong. And there's other frontiersmen there too. So now you have the Tea Party, right? You had the Tea Party, and that's interesting because that's the Sons of Liberty. Sounds like a biker gang, right? Imagine if they the Sons of Liberty, that's pretty cool, pretty original. And there's questions in history whether they were a formal organization or whether it was just a slogan to get people to meet. So there's no formal organization, but they said all Sons of Liberty meet at the Liberty Tree. And everyone knew what the Liberty Tree was except for the British. So it was like a code word, right? So then they would discuss these things, and that's where they planned the Boston Tea Party. Not only, because the taxes, right? Mm-hmm. So the the British Trading Company loses like $2 million in one night in today's money, not in their money back then, but in today's money. That was $2 million worth of tea. That's a lot of tea. It's getting less and less today, you know. 2 million is getting less and less. I'm like, wow. You know, so they're there, right? They're getting ticked off because the British are putting out these regulations. And here's a key thing, right? When you think of, they say, no taxation without representation. Well, the colonies were in limbo, all right? So we have Puerto Rico. We have Guam. We have, I'm just talking the bigger ones. We have the American Virgin Islands, all right? Those are all territories of the United States. Now, they have no representation in Congress or the Senate, all right? But if they wanted to become a territory and then they chose to become a state, then they would have representation, right, as a state. In our republic, there is a vehicle for them to get there, right? And Puerto Rico has it every once in a while. They vote and they vote it down because they're happy being, or the majority of people are happy being a territory of the United States with all the benefits you get thereof. But one thing that's fun is that they are subject to the draft. Okay? They're still and guess what? I'm pretty sure they can vote in a general election, but it doesn't mean, you know, they vote locally, but nationally they have no vote because we go by the Electoral College, because we're a republic. The big thing in the colonies was you have the House of Lords, which are inherited, right? Oh, I'm rich Joe so-and-so, and I was born to a guy who was born to a guy who was born to a guy. I've never accomplished anything in my life, and I've always had, you know, my silver spoon, and people have fed me, and I have never wiped my own bottom, right? But I'm going to sit in the House of Lords, and I'm going to tell everyone else how to live. Then you had the House of Commons, and you got the king there. Well, there's absolutely no representation for the subjects of the king, some of which were born in Great Britain. Now they moved to the colonies and they've lost all representation, all chance of voting. They're not sending someone to the House of Commons, and of course not to the House of Lords, because no one inheriting. That was one of the big things that the Founding Fathers did, all right? So people are not just upset at the overbearing taxes and the limitations that are being put on them by the British government, right? They're upset with no representation. And they're paying, you know. So they write a couple letters. So you have the First Continental Congress. And you guys may not have heard, you know, people think Congress, but it was just a group of people, the group of these guys, possibly from the Sons of Liberty, which, you know, the slogan, and they all decide that they're going to meet up in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, right? I think in Philadelphia, right? They're all going to meet there, and they elect their own, like, president of this board, and his name was Peyton Randolph. I mean, who's ever heard of Peyton Randolph?
I haven't. He's
kind of a chubby, happy-looking guy, too. I've seen the picture of him on Wikipedia. I go, that guy looks pretty happy. He looks well-fed. Looks really well-fed.
What's his name again?
Peyton Randolph. All right? And they call these British things the intolerable acts, right? We can't tolerate this. You guys are going overboard. And this is just a loose organization. They elected their own thing, but they're kind of represented. And they send a letter off to the king saying, hey, man, listen, this is our Declaration of Rights and Grievances. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Look, he looks like a happy guy, right?
He's very well fed.
Oh, man, very well fed, very happy. He looks like he's pretty tall, too, you know? Yeah. I mean, he's got that chunkified face going, you know, but he's pretty tall. He's got his powdered wig, you know?
Yep.
You know, and elect them president. They have a good organization. It takes them a while, a couple, it's only from the 5th of September to 26th of October, so it's like 7 weeks, right? Maybe 8 weeks, right? 8 weeks total. They're kind of in session, and they come up with this declarations of rights and grievances, and they basically tell, listen, the people, we're representing the people, we're self-appointed, they're kind of self-appointed representatives of the people here, and we're sending to you, these are our grievances. We're kind of mad, all right? We got together and we do this. And of course, the King, the House of Lords, and the House of Commons are going, oh, silly colonies. Oh, we are the all-powerful British Empire, who literally just recently, less than 10 years ago, trained up a professional army for you, that we forgot about, all right? So then, then they don't meet for a while again, and they said, okay, we did this, we send it off, and you got to know that there was no Zoom, there was no instant messaging, there was no telephone, telegraph, satellite telephones, there was no radio, all right? None of this existed. The fastest thing that existed at the time was semaphore. And they had, if you read the Count of Monte Cristo, all right, they set up semaphore stations where you could see like to the horizon and you could see these flags, all right? And so if you wanted to send a message, one guy would hit the flags, right? And the other guy would hit the flags, and the other guy would hit the flags, and you get a long distance in a very short period of time to get information. But it's like one letter through the flag at a time, right? The quickest way was by sea, and you could take like 2 to 3 weeks to get from Maine to the tip of Georgia, right? And Georgia was not participating in the Continental Congress because they had, you think of Georgia, oh, well, Atlanta and everything, and it's all on the East Coast, but really it was frontier back then. And they had problems with the Indians, the Native Americans again, so they wanted the British support there, so they didn't want to make the Brits mad. But it would take a couple weeks, a couple months, and so they waited almost a whole year until May 15th for an answer from the king. They're going to give them like a year, and then they're going to meet again and determine what to do. So, it's not instantaneous things here. It's not, the travel is hard, and these guys, it's not like these congressmen that, well, I'm going to fly over 99% of the country and hit Washington, D.C., and I'm going to get paid to fly. It's not going to be out of my pocket. The federal government's going to eat that for me, and I'm going to show up in Congress for a couple days, and then I'm going to fly all the way home, and then I'm going to do it again next week, maybe, right? So it's easy for them. And if they're not there, they could Zoom, pick up a phone, have one of their assistants sit there and tell them, hey, you really need to come in for this in person. They didn't have that. They either you were there or you weren't. And if you weren't there, you'd have to read the minutes. All right, when we get back, we're going to go on for the next part of our little approaching the July 4th.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
6-5 win for the Guardians over the White Sox Thursday. That pulls Cleveland even with the Sox atop the American League Central. Braden Rocchio hit a 2-run homer in the 9th to lift the Guardians to the win. The series continues tonight with the White Sox sending lefty Anthony Kay to the mound. He's 6-3. The Guardians scheduled to go with 9-4 righty Gavin Williams. The Cardinals beat the Braves 11-5 on Thursday. 15 hits in the win for St. Louis. Jordan Walker homered and drove in 4 runs. Nathan Church hit a tying 2-run homer and a 7-run seventh for the Cards. Atlanta led at 5-3 before the Cardinals rallied. Dominic Smith drove in 3 runs with a double in Atlanta's 5-run first. The Cardinals open a series against the Cubs tonight. It'll be right-hander Andre Palante starting for the Cards. He's 9-5 on the season. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters or condo with Progressive.
I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams 4th of July sale and get 30% off paints and stains June 26th through July 6th. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm, and Chuck McDowell definitely not an attorney. This is Chuck. If someone talked you into buying something really silly and you want to get out of that silly little thing, my advice, get the facts. Call me and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit absolutely free. Inside, you'll learn how timeshare works and all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free exit information kit. 800-909-9696. 800-909-9696.
Looking to buy or sell a home in Chicagoland? Need trusted legal help with real estate, evictions, or estate planning? Turn to Guthrie & Brady, the happy lawyers serving the greater Chicago area since 1965. With over 50 years of experience, they handle titles and deeds, foreclosures, landlord-tenant issues, wills, trusts, and more. Appointments available evenings or weekends at their Roselle office or right in your home. Call Guthrie & Brady now at 847-524-1215. That's 847-524-1215. Or visit gnblegal.com. Guthrie & Brady, personal, professional, affordable legal services for all of Chicagoland. The happy lawyers since 1965. That's gnblegal.com. Or 847-524-1215. Guthrie & Brady, trusted legal help made easy, fast, affordable, and experienced. Call today.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast, brought to you by Chick-fil-A. This afternoon, mostly cloudy with a high near 80. A slight chance of showers and thunderstorms likely. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely before midnight, with a low around 65. Looking ahead to Sunday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. A slight chance of rain showers possible. Currently, it's 79 and partly cloudy. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
Doug. Limu and I created a trick to help you remember that you can customize your car insurance and save with Liberty Mutual. You see, the shirts Limu and I wear are yellow, and yellow is the color of lemons, and lemons grow on trees, and trees provide oxygen, and oxygen helps us breathe, and breathing is how you live, and you can live more life when you save money by customizing your car insurance. I agree, Limu. It's really quite simple. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Six Bandits, comrades, this is Chief Gardner Republic Radio Show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid. Paul Burvid's taking a break this week, so it's just me all by myself, my big giant head filling the screen. And we're talking about the 4th of July. If you want to talk about the 4th of July with me, you call in at 847-931-1410. You can text in at 505-926-1410. Or you can comment here like Dennis Cleveland out here on the YouTube Live channel. So go to WRMN 1410 on YouTube Live. Go to WRMN1410.com and you can have a link to listen live or the YouTube channel. And, you know, if your AM doesn't pick it in, amplitude modulation dial, you can always stream it live. Right, so we're talking about, okay, so it's the Second Continental Congress. It's the second time the Continental Congress has met. And again, these guys are kind of loosely organized, but I'm sure they had secret plans, stuff that they didn't write down, that they talked to each other, said we're going to be back in about 9 months, and we're going to really discuss things seriously then. So these guys being the educated guys, I mean, if you're going to take a couple weeks off from work, right, especially around harvest time in September and October there, you probably have some ducats with you, or you don't have to work that farm or anything, that you have enough self-means to take care of that. So at the same time, they meet up now in May 10th of 1775 for the Second Continental Congress, and they determined that, hey, instead of going to, you almost see their intention. One of the things that the British say is that, hey, we have to pay for the defense of the colonies. Therefore, we're going to tax you into oblivion to pay for this defense. What they really meant is that we're fighting the French. We're getting our heads handed to us. All right, we're getting that handed to us, and we need more money. But we're not going to oppress our own people with overtaxation because they'll vote us out of office or whatever, overflip the government. They won't be very happy. We don't need an uprising in our own country and getting a king executed again. So what we're going to do is we're going to tax the colonies, particularly the American colonies, because they're doing really well. You know, they're manufacturing their own stuff, manufacturing their own weapons, manufacturing cannons, manufacturing gunpowder, manufacturing all this stuff. They're good, you know. They're making a lot of money off the fur trades, the whaling, everything else. So they're really paying for their colonialization of the world on the backs of the Americans. At least that's what the North Americans think, right? So during the Second Continental Congress, they go, oh, well, here's one of the things. If the British think we can't defend ourselves, well, we're going to form our own army. So June 14th, Flag Day, also the birthday of the U.S. Army. And this was the 251st birthday this year because it was formed in 1775, long before we declared our independence. And now there's a legitimate reason for having an army. You know, the British are like, what? What are you forming an army for? Well, you said you can't defend us because it's too expensive. We'll form our own army and we'll do it cheaper. So you don't have to tax, you know, hey, give them a solution, right? That's the way I'm thinking about it, right? And by the way, you kind of trained us up in the French and Indian War, so we have competent leadership. We have guys that, you know, they liked being in the Army. You know, they like being in that, so we have a ready supply of recruits there. We're going to form our own Continental Army. And again, the British are like, oh, well, maybe that's a good idea. But they respond again. They send another petition, right? The petition of the Grand American Continental Congress to the most excellent majesty, right? They send that to the king. Again, no response. So now, fast forward, Continental Congress is 1776. They like, okay, they're running everything now. They're under the Articles of Confederation, and they're forming their own federal government. Like in Afghanistan, we call it like a shadow government, right? So even though we supported Karzai's regime, right, and the State Department supported, you know, oh, let's have a democracy there, and we're going to run in it. Everything was run by the shadow government, by the Taliban, because they got things done and people trusted them. Here, you know, you're gonna petition the king, or you're gonna petition your local representative to get stuff done under the Articles of Confederation. So, and they didn't even finish the Articles of Confederation until 1781, but they're operating under this Continental Congress. All right, so the later on in July, during this whole time, they're starting to write a Declaration of Independence, which is the final letter to the king. It's just like, okay, we've given you every opportunity. We've given you ample time. We've given you ample reasons. We have a solution in place. All right. So now we're going to take that solution that we have in place and we're going to tell you, yeah, you could get lost. You can leave the colonies. We're our own country now. We'll protect ourselves. You don't got to worry about taxing us because you don't have to provide anything for us anymore. We're independent. We're not going to cost you a dime. You don't let us vote. All right. We're not considered real citizens, even though we may have been born there, but now we're over here. And if our children aren't citizens over here of Great Britain because we're born over here, then what are we citizens of? Well, we're going to make our own thing. We're citizens now, right? And we had I didn't even read the birthright citizenship stuff, all right? Because, again, you gotta really look long run, and I don't think the founding fathers had that in cause, but that's getting a little separated from that now. But that was one of the main issues there. So now everyone's supposed to be a citizen. July 4th, 1776, Declaration of Independence. It's published. They read it out. All these guys sign it. And, was it John Hancock who signed it in the big? And one other guy was like, if we don't hang together, we should. If we don't hang together, we should all certainly hang separately, because it's treason. And there's another thing, right? If you're not a citizen, you're not given that authority of a citizen or recognition of a citizen or the rights of a citizen over in Great Britain, right? The United Kingdom, you're not given the same rights as they are. How come they could grab you, take you to Great Britain, and try you for treason? So it's like, oh, I got to follow all the rules, but you don't got to provide. Okay, well, it's just the whole thing. So now it's like, okay, now the British are like, these uppity Americans, all right? So they have forces here, right? They occupy New York, and they have loyalists. Not everyone in the United States wanted to separate from Great Britain. Because there were people, I'm Lord so-and-so's son, Lord Farquhar's son, and I'm going to take over the lordship when I go over there, I'm on a separate scale, but I'm living big over here now because it's just good. I got a lot of indentured servants, So the British are like flummoxed now. They go, okay, so these guys are finally hit this independent. We're going to go, it's going to go to war with them now, right? And that's the way the war goes. But what they neglected to realize is that they had trained up their own army to fight against them. Well, they'll never fight again. All right, so we're in Afghanistan, and we're telling everyone, the Afghan National Army is going to last a month at best. That was our stretch. Our absolute stretch was 1 month. That they'll stick together, be able to fight, be able to hold the government together. Nope. Didn't even last that long. But the people we're telling it to, we're down and dirty with this stuff. We see it. We know the shadow government. We know all the players. We know all this stuff's happening, right? But the people up top are like, oh, no, they tell us it's not happening, and you're just the peasant scum. Because now, unfortunately, I'm going to go on a good rant here. Get ready for the rant. All right? One of the great things about the United States and the Founding Fathers is these guys are like, there's no nobility over here. You're not a noble, right? You're a citizen, right? They did have landholder status for voting, right? Because they want to have skin in the game. But this all rapidly matured into the republic we have now. Little changes came as things got bigger in the fairness of the system. Ugh. And the rant here is that now that we've had this political system for, well, actually, the Articles of Confederation were ratified in 1781, but then they started working on the Constitution, which wasn't, I don't think, was ratified to 1786. So you had the Articles of Confederation, but then you had the Constitution was separate from the Articles of Confederation. They wanted to declare George Washington a king, and he's like, nope. Because that's the thing. You declare him king, all of a sudden you're establishing nobility. And as king, he could say, oh, well, you're a duke, and you're an earl, and you're this, and because you got those titles, you're better than everyone else. But now, in our country, we have dynasties of rich people that start dipping their toes into the political spectrum, right? And you have dynasties of politicians that have never done anything their whole lives and the whole lives of their fathers and their fathers before that. They've always been politicians, either low level or they move up in the level, and they amass these great fortunes to keep their political dynasties going, but none of them can change a car tire or plant the seed of corn to grow a corn stalk and get some ears of corn out of it. None of them can do that. They're clueless. They got these big law degrees, right? They got these, they got experience in public administration, tell everyone where to sweep everything. But they have created these dynasties which keep getting their kids or their families elected into various offices where none of the average guys can come in and change things up. Because not only is it the dynasty of the family name, recognition and everything, they control the money that people donate to the DNC, the RNC, the Communists Unite, the Green Party, all this other stuff. The money, they control that money and who's going to get it. And you can't get elected dog catcher without paying for ungodly amounts of advertising, right? That's why they don't like peasants like me. If I was to run for office, could I do this radio show anymore? Well, they'd have to give fair time to everyone else that's running against me, even if I didn't talk about anything here. They're like, well, he has access to that. All right, well, but if I wanted to pay for commercials on WRMN, I could do that. You could do that. You could sponsor me, and I'll talk all about you for a certain price. If I like you, I'm not gonna sponsor something I disagree with or I don't like, no matter how desperate I am. If I have to go off the radio because I would have to I would do it because I'm happy with what I got now. But so the dynasties have come up into effect here, right? That's the trouble is we started off not to be that separate class, that everyone was one class, except, of course, women. But we've matured now, right? And it's in there. It's been found we have amendments to the Constitution. You're a citizen in the United States, you get to vote. You're 18 years old, you get to vote. Male, female, IQ of 3, IQ of 203, you get to vote. Doesn't matter. You could be in a permanent vegetative state over on Wilson Avenue in a nursing home. Guess what? That person has been in a permanent vegetative state for 10 years. They have voted every year. Guaranteed. So these dynasties, not only that, but again, they protect their dynasty by the corruption, by like, okay, how can we ensure we're going to get elected? Well, I go out to you, and I love the meme where they're all in the office room, right? They're all in the high-rise office, and they got, your giant manager there and everything. Everyone's sitting around, and they have ideas, and one idea is stupider than the other. And then the one guy says something reasonable, like, why don't you just do your job, not take bribes, and make sure you're looking out for your constituents? And they grab that guy and throw him out the window. Yeah. I'm sure you've seen that, right? Says something reasonable. How do you get? Well, I just did my job. People are happy with me. I'm doing what I can. No longer the case, right? The people run to get reelected, and they cater to the loudest voices that are going to be the biggest voting bloc. And that might not be all their constituents. Then we get into the gerrymandering thing. I'm sure the founding fathers' heads would have stood on end. Their wigs would have been right up, magnetically raised. They're like, gerrymandering? What's that? So I wonder, that's what I got to research. If anyone knows, let me know, all right? When they elect the PMs in Great Britain, all right, the parliamentary members, or MPs, members of parliament, MPs. A little dyslexic here, just a little. The MPs, members of parliament. How are their areas drawn up? I mean, is it like ours? Like you got this weird little, maze of like one house connected to the house of all the Democrats in one area, and they get elected to the House of Representatives because they split all the Republicans in half. Gerrymandered. How does that work? Again, we're talking about AI. Instead of using, this gerrymandering where they rig the area to make sure that their candidate has a majority of the votes in that area, whether Republican or Democrat. It's supposed to be by population, by the census, which gets very keyed there, right? So, boom. If you just take artificial intelligence and say, break down the state of Illinois by population of voting people that can vote by population, into so many districts, depending on how many seats in the House of Representatives we have. And just let AI do it without regards to race, creed, religion, color, IQ, anything else. It's just the voters, right? The citizen, all equal regardless. This is why they lost in, I think, Alabama. They're like, are you kidding me? That's a clear violation of the Constitution to make these things based on race, right? Because that means I'm not as important or someone else is not as important when they're all supposed to be the same. If AI did that, how do you think our House of Representatives would look? Because now, instead of having this weird shaped thing, all my constituents are going to be all close to me, all in one area. I'm going to answer to constituents that won't like me, constituents that do like me, constituents in the middle, and constituents that will hold my feet to the fire for everything I said. Right now with the gerrymandering, they're like, well, I could literally drink the blood out of a baby on live TV, and because of the gerrymandering and because of the party I'd be with, I'll still get elected. Doesn't matter. My boys downstate have set me up for success. So do they care about anyone there? Their care is taken out of them. They're just, now you nail them and you say, oh, well, bingo, you've been gerrymandered out of your district, right? And they're like, oh, no, they did that to me now. Or they just give them a district. This is the best thing. They give them a district that's 50-50 down the middle, right? Which pretty much should be, you'd think that would be legit. You'd think the whole country's like 50-50. So you get 50-50 down the middle. Now, the reasonable people on both sides say, because there is reasonable people on both sides, believe it or not. And there are unreasonable people on both sides, believe it or not, right? So the reasonable people in the middle go, this person's a goof. They haven't done anything. All right? Listen to them.
We got a comment on the text line.
Yeah, okay.
John Adams and Thomas Jefferson died exactly 200 years ago on this day.
Wow.
Yep.
200. What? That's impressive. Well, they were both young guys, all right? So people think that, oh, these are all a bunch of old white men that wrote this stuff. No, these guys were like 18, 21. But again, a different time. You were going to university when you were 12. You weren't stuck. You weren't stuck in the 8th grade with a bunch of paste eaters going at the speed of the slowest boat. And that boat was going in reverse. Your parents educated you. You went to university. You had the smarts. You went there. And you got educated higher. Or you were homeschooled because your parents were, women weren't in the workplace or politics or whatever, but they're still like tutors and everything. And some cultures don't like educating the women. But hey, if your wife is educated, she's literate. She's literate. She can do numbers. She's read history and she's read the classics. All right. She's going to be teaching the kids because there's nothing else to do. She's not going to be watching Oprah. There was no Oprah. So she's going to take her little baby boy, her prince of a boy there, and she's going to dress him up nicely, and she's going to teach the kid his letters and his numbers, and she's going to be proud of him. When he goes to church and everyone see what an articulate child she has, that's a reflection of her, more so on her husband who's out doing the family business or whatever. And then as soon as that kid's old enough to pick up a hammer, a shovel, a quill pen or something, he's working in the family business and he's getting educated into that too. So very early in life, they had a very wide and liberal education. All right, these guys weren't in a scientific, they weren't doctors of medicine over there stealing bodies and helping Dr. Frankenstein. They were getting a very liberal education of letters and everything, because that was thought that if you were a Renaissance man and you had that, you could basically do a little of everything, or you could at least read up on it or understand how it's needed. So when we come back, we'll be at the second half of the July 4th Chief Guard of the Republic show.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Hey Bears fans, want your business heard during every heart-pounding moment of the game? WRMN 1410 is now offering in-game ad spots for Chicago Bears broadcasts. Be a part of the action as thousands of die-hard listeners tune in each week. Whether it's a touchdown, turnover, or a timeout, your message will be right there in the mix. Spots are limited and going fast. Call WRMN 1410 today at 847-741-7700 and score big with in-game advertising that delivers results. Get in the game with the Chicago Bears on WRMN AM 1410.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 1 o'clock.
With your news flash, I'm Ryan Gatenby.
Brought to you by KFC.
A Lake in the Hills man has been sentenced to 96 years in prison for a deadly 2020 road rage shooting in Elgin, according to authorities. Prosecutors say 27-year-old Drew K. Jarvis fired multiple shots after a traffic confrontation at State and Kimball Streets, killing 41-year-old Francisco Trujillo Uscanga and injuring another man. Investigators later linked him to a separate shooting weeks afterward, helping build the case that led to his conviction on murder, attempted murder, and armed violence charges. The Kane County coroner has identified the woman found in the Fox River near St. Charles as 41-year-old Amanda Flick of St. Charles. Officials say a preliminary autopsy found the cause of death was drowning, though toxicology results are still pending. Authorities recovered her body Wednesday near Illinois Route 31 and Rockwell Avenue after a report of a person in the water. The investigation into her death remains ongoing. Schaumburg police say a report that a woman was being held against her will was inaccurate. Officers responded Thursday morning and arrested a man who fled a residence through a window but was later caught nearby. No charges have been announced as the investigation continues. Federal immigration officials say they arrested 10,000 people in the U.S. over a 5-day span as enforcement efforts ramp up. Sources say ICE has set a new goal of at least 2,000 arrests per day moving forward. The Department of Homeland Security says nearly 70% of ICE arrests involve people charged with or convicted of crimes. The Trump administration is launching Trump accounts on July 4th, giving eligible newborns a $1,000 government-funded investment account. The money is invested until age 18 and can later be used for expenses like college, a first home, or starting a business. Hiring slowed sharply in June as the U.S. added 57,000 jobs, well below economists' expectations and down from 129,000 in May. The unemployment rate edged down to 4.2%, while the White House said the broader labor market remains on an upward trajectory.
I'm Ryan Gatenby with your news flash.
This year, Macy's is celebrating 50 years of fireworks. So come celebrate with us in style and take 50% off swim, 50% off sunglasses, 50% off grilling tools, 50 years of fireworks, 50% off throughout the entire store. That's a celebration only Macy's can deliver. Shop Macy's July 4th sale and see our 50th fireworks Saturday on NBC and Peacock. Savings off select prices. Exclusions apply.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. After my husband died, the last thing I wanted to think about was money. Ethos made it affordable to get life insurance. Signing up was fast and 100% online. I knew that I could pay our mortgage and have food in the fridge. I could focus on my kids. No one ever tells you how much you're going to depend on that policy. I am so grateful we had coverage.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/save. That's ethos.com/save. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
6-5 win for the Guardians over the White Sox Thursday. That pulls Cleveland even with the Sox atop the American League Central. Brain Rocchio hit a 2-run homer in the 9th to lift the Guardians to the win. The series continues tonight with the White Sox sending lefty Anthony Kay to the mound. He's 6-3. The Guardians scheduled to go with 9-4 righty Gavin Williams. The Cardinals beat the Braves 11-5 on Thursday. 15 hits in the win for St. Louis. Jordan Walker homered and drove in 4 runs. Nathan Church hit a tying 2-run homer and a 7-run 7th for the Cards. Atlanta led at 5-3 before the Cardinals rallied. Dominic Smith drove in 3 runs with a double in Atlanta's 5-run first. The Cardinals open a series against the Cubs. Tonight, it'll be right-hander Andre Pallante starting for the Cards. He's 9-5 on the season. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive.
I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
The Colonel's cooked up a new $10 bucket of the day just for you. Monday, 24 nuggets for $10. Tuesday, 8-piece fried chicken.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast, brought to you by Chick-fil-A. This afternoon, mostly cloudy with a high near 80. A slight chance of showers and thunderstorms likely. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely before midnight, with a low around 65. Looking ahead to Sunday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. A slight chance of rain showers possible. Currently, it's 79 and partly cloudy. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
And Doug. Limu and I created a trick to help you remember that you can customize your car insurance and save with Liberty Mutual. You see, the shirts Limu and I wear are yellow, and yellow is the color of lemons. And lemons grow on trees, and trees provide oxygen, and oxygen helps us breathe, and breathing is how you live, and you can live more life when you save money by customizing your car insurance. I agree, Limu. It's really quite simple. Only pay for what you need at LibertyMutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Elgin isn't just a city, it's a community built on connection, innovation, and opportunity. And at the heart of it all is the Elgin Chamber of Commerce. For over a century, the Elgin Chamber has helped local businesses grow, connecting entrepreneurs, advocating for progress, and inspiring the leaders of tomorrow. Whether you're a new business just starting out or an established company looking to expand, the Elgin Chamber is your partner for success. Join a powerful network of leaders making a difference in our community every day. Together, we're shaping the future of Elgin, one connection at a time. Elgin Area Chamber of Commerce, where business and community grow together. Call now, 847-741-5660, or go to info@elginchamber.com. Contact Carol Gies.
Fix Bennett's Comrades, this Chief Guard Republic radio show. Co-host Mike Tuman and Paul Burvid. Paul Burvid's taking a day off, and I'm here. Oh, my God. Okay, there. I had to put on my hat because the glare was killing everyone. And so this second half of our show, we're noon until 2, streaming live on WRMN1410.com. Just hit stream live, and it'll take you to the YouTube live channel, or hit streaming, just streaming, and you just get the radio version, the audio version. Or you could tune in to 1410 on the AM amplitude modulation dial, and if you're within like 10 miles of Elgin, you should be able to pick it up, depending on the weather. When it's overcast, you're more likely to pick it up. Clear weather, those signals are going out to space. They're not bouncing off the atmosphere anymore. All right, so and again, we talked about that back in 1775. They didn't have those quick signals like that. The fastest way was to have to get on a boat, and then you only went along the coast, so you would have to shoot down the coast and then shoot inland, but by the fastest horse you could find. So, I'm wondering how long it took for them to publish the Declaration of Independence and distribute it, because, one, it's handwritten, right? But they did have printing presses. But then you got to have a guy go in there and put all the letters in there and then turn the thing and stamp them out. And, find a guy that wanted to do that without having the British come in and take apart his very expensive printing press or just steal it from him, and then take him over to Great Britain and try him for treason. But, yeah, these young guys, right? Okay, so they lived until their 60s or whatever, but who would have thought, they're organized in the Second Continental Congress. They're starting to, they're organized there, the Confederation. They do the Articles of Confederation. And then after the war is won, which again, okay, so 1763, right, is when the British and the French signed the peace treaty of Paris after the French and Indian War. But then in 1783, it's the second treaty of Paris where the Americans and the British signed the peace treaty. So it's like 20 years. And it took like 2 years of non-fighting, right? So here's a kicker, right? Is that after the Revolutionary War, what do you think happened to all the loyalists? Well, if we had been Mao, Stalin, any of these other, quote, democracies, right? Pol Pot or whatever, the first thing after winning the war, and you have all these loyalists around that fought for the guys you're fighting against, it's like, what loyalists? Yeah. But they either self-deported or got deported because, now, people don't want you around. One reason, and think of it this way, right? How is that guy going to get along with your new government when he wants to be with the king, with the royalists? I want to be a royalist. I want to be in the king. I want to be a duke. I want to be one of these guys. I want to be one of the beautiful people. Am I going to work with this government? Am I going to work with the other people? No. So it's better for them to get out. Maybe they could sell their stuff. Maybe they already converted it. Get out with your life intact. It was a different type of world. This is a world where they still tar and feathered people. That's where they would pour boiling tar on you, like hot tar. So no, it wasn't just sticky. It was hot and it hurt a lot and it wouldn't come off. And then they throw feathers on top of that to add insult to injury, and then they'd run you out of town. And if you survived, you were maimed for the rest of your life. If you survived, because you're probably going to get an infection that'll kill you back then. So now, thank God, we got the whole country together. We got rid of the malcontents. Out you go, malcontents. Go up to Canada. Go down to the Caribbean. Go to Newfoundland. Go back to Great Britain. Go to India. Go somewhere else. We don't want you here. You lose. Nowadays, like, oh well. They're like, oh. I don't know what we would do nowadays, right? But okay, so they lost. Bring them in. We're supposed to be in the parade. I'm watching part of the parade in Elgin. Elgin had a fantastic parade. WRMN was there live. And I go out in the corner. I can't get past the mobs and everything because I got here a little early. But when I came out there's a guy waving a flag, and he goes, "Tell me what a democracy is." He was running for some office. And I screamed at him, "It's mob rule." And he stopped. He was like, "What?" I go, "Mob rule. We live in a republic." And he just kept walking faster. So, yeah. So, if we had a democracy, then the people that won, 51%, could vote to just execute the other 49% and take everything they have. Hey, it's a democracy. They voted. They win. Will of the people. We got to follow it. It's a democracy. But it's not. It's a republic, and it's a more polite republic, right? Still, these guys, for fear of democracy, they got out because they knew once this government became in under the Constitution, what if they put a law that says all these loyalists lose all their property and all their rights and everything else, You had to have fought with well, that didn't happen. So that's just leading up to the 4th of July there. So there's a lot more things that went on. And then the war, it wasn't like, 1776, 1777, all of a sudden we got the Yorktown. Well, Yorktown was when they finally cornered another British officer who was like, "Oh, those colonials can't fight. I'll show them. All the other generals before me didn't know what they were doing, but I'm over here now. I'll teach them a lesson." And then, again, remember, they had trained up their opposition. It wasn't like you hear in the movies. "Oh yeah, I trained you, but I didn't teach you everything." No, dude, you trained us what you knew, and then we learned more. So you don't know everything because we learned more ways to fight than you did. All right, we're a little more devastated when we're fighting the Native Americans. They fight a little differently. We learned to fight against them. You guys are sending us over guys now that have fought in Europe. The guys that are getting replaced are guys that fought in Europe. They're marching in formation and everything. They have no clue what they're coming into. All right, so that took, 1784, right? 1783. So it wasn't until like 1781, right, when the war was actually over. And then it took 2 years to sign the peace treaty. Right. And now in that treaty, we get all the lands that the British had before. And now, after the war, that law is not in place anymore. And they go west of the Appalachians. So now you got a big expansion, right? Which is a big. I wish I'd done more research on the War of 1812. All I know is that under a different king and under different leaders, they're like, wait a second, how the heck did they get their liberty from us, their independence from us? Look, we got Canada up here. We don't have to do any forced entry. We'll just march down from Canada. We still have the largest navy in the world. We'll just come out with that. And they come down and they're like, oh, well, these guys are still fighting, towards the end of the war, we're fighting them like we're fighting them like them, right? So now you go another 30 years after that, the War of 1812, go close to 30 years, different generation. The only difference is the rifles have a little bit of longer range, the cannons have a little bit of longer range, but these guys are still marching up in formation on each other and let loose. And then it goes into the Civil War and the same thing. You think they would have learned from the French and Indian War, guerrilla warfare tactics and everything. So our independence, and this is my theory here to bring it around, is like the British massively violated the special operations imperatives. They massively didn't understand them when it came to this. And that our founding fathers, a lot of them raised in the frontier, raised away from Great Britain, raised away from that I inherited my rank as general or colonel, because I got money, raised away from that and had earned their respect and everything, fighting in militia and then getting it thrown into these federal forces. What they should have done after the French and Indian War is demobilized, made sure that all these troops would spread out, where they couldn't come back and bite them in the butt. And when they realized that these guys had grievances, rather than deal with them and settle their grievances, they totally ignored them. They didn't think it was a threat. Everything's a threat. Any little group can get out there. Had the king and everything answered these grievances, probably be a British colonies today. But I don't think it would have. They probably would have had a problem with the French again. Because even after the French and Indian Wars, the French still had territory west of the Mississippi. So they could have came in again and attacked, and if they made friends with the Native Americans, everything between the Mississippi and the Appalachians would have been almost theirs, because there would have been nothing there to defend them from taking it. And you couldn't move a massive force except up the Mississippi River and supply it, because there is no outpost. There's no Chicago. There was no St. Louis. I think there's a little bit of New Orleans, but there's no other major cities on these rivers. Des Moines, nothing. So you land in the middle of the wilderness. And if you can't carry it on your back, you got to live off the land. And there were no, in Europe, you could always move into a city, right? The cities are in Europe, right? They're all over the place in Europe. So in the Napoleonics, when you came through, right, you just went through everyone's house and took all their stuff. All the wheat, all the grain, all the potatoes, you just took it because you needed to feed your army. Shoes, you need shoes, take their shoes. Need blankets for you guys, take the blankets and move on, because you're fighting a war. They'll find it somewhere else. They'll dig it up somewhere else. Did you ever hear the story of rock soup? Again, this is talking. I'm getting a little off subject here. But during the Napoleonics, the people, whenever they saw soldiers, they would hide everything. All of the livestock would go out to the woods. Some kid would grab them all and run off with them and be hiding in the woods somewhere along where the military wouldn't get at it, the soldiers wouldn't get at it. And so this one soldier, the war's over, he's walking his way home, he comes to this village, he's near starving, and he's like begging for food, and no one's giving, we don't have anything, it's all gone. But he knows they had it all hidden, right? So he gets a pot of water, finds a pot of water, makes a fire, starts heating up water, and then he throws in a rock into the water. It's like, oh, this is really good. He's sitting there tasting it. It's like real good. And people are like, what's this? He goes, this is good, but it's not the best, all right? I don't want you guys to taste it until it's best. What it needs now is some potatoes. If I had potatoes. And then he adds a little ingredient to everything until they make this giant stew, right? He has his fill, and everybody's like, my God, he made this wonderful stew out of a rock. But he convinced everyone, so they had everything hidden. We had everything hidden. It's not like the British were coming to stomp. Like, we didn't need materials from Great Britain. We could feed ourselves. We didn't have to import oil from them. No one was using oil. Right? We had livestock, we had cows, we had milk, we had all of that. We had foundries where they were making weapons. We can make our own cannons. We could build our own ships, right? We didn't need to trade with Great Britain, and they didn't realize that. The arrogance of it is like, oh, we'll boycott them. We'll put a what we're doing in the Straits of Hormuz. We'll blockade them, so they won't be able to trade with France either. Didn't matter. We had enough internal trade, people trading with each other, barter and everything, right? People digging up gold already. We had coal, we had steel, we had everything that's being made, iron, it's being made right there. They can embargo us. We could outlast them. They can't embargo everything. We could go to Spain. We could go through Mexico. We could do all that stuff. But what hurts Great Britain is that we're going to not buy any more British things. This going back to the Sons of Liberty. If it comes in on a British ship, we ain't going to buy it. Don't even bring it here. You're just going to tax it anyway, so we're not going to buy it. So who does that hurt? If you have to take your ship, of course it's all sail power, right? So it's all wind power. You're not burning coal. You're not burning oil. You still got to feed your crew, right? The ones that you did in Shanghai, you got to kind of pay them. And you have Lloyd's of London, right? And you have to insure these ships. That's the big thing right now is insuring them. So you insure the ship to come over. It's not going to get sunk. It's not going to get lost in thing. It comes over, and they can't sell their product. So they got to take it up to Canada where they got to sell it at a loss, or they got to take it somewhere else, and they're losing all that time, and they're taking the risk. So when we were boycotting them, it hurt them more than them embargoing us. And then the French come in, right? That was another thing at Yorktown. When when they're absolutely positively sure that we have a chance at defeating the British, then they're like, oh, we're pro-American. Because before the Revolutionary War, who were we fighting? Who did we learn how to fight? I mean, we learned from the British, right? The British come, right? They take the militia, and then they have the frontiersmen. They have groups that they bring into the regular army for like a year, and they train these guys up, and they defeat the French, right? So now we spanked the French. We took all this territory away from them, and now the French come in on our side just to hand it to the British, just to stick it in the British hair, boink. And they chased the British fleet away, and the greatest fleet ever. Well, it was also spread out across the world. And Cornwallis now, who said that he'll stomp everything, he could just be evacuated from sea. He didn't care that he was getting cornered on a peninsula. He gets supplied from sea. He didn't have to worry about keeping supply lines open. And all of a sudden, the Navy's gone, and it's like he has to surrender. And again, it's arrogance. And I think you see that a lot when you have people that inherit their rank and inherit their position rather than earning it. And even if you have the best advisors in the world, you still have to know when to be risk adverse and when to take a risk. And he took a big risk where he should have been risk adverse. Never, okay, I like these mixed martial arts fighters. And this is another thing, too, which makes the 4th of July so great, because the Declaration of Independence is a very polite, trash talk. We didn't say we're going to do anything to them. It's completely polite. All the letters we sent were completely polite. The British, by their total ignoring of the situation, were doing the trash talk on this, right? They're like, it doesn't even matter to us what you're saying. And then at the end of the war, they've had it handed to them. So now you can't say something like, well, they just got lucky. They just got lucky. You can't even say they had better weapons or anything. If you belittle your enemy, right? If I say I'm in a fight and I says I'm going to kick him around like a 2-year-old with physical disabilities, I'm going to kick him around the ring. He's not going to lay a finger on me, right? I trash talk him, and I get punked. I get laid out, right? Now, well, it looks like the 2-year-old with disabilities kicked your butt. You lose that respect, right? So never underestimate your enemy. Never kind of, we'll just kill him. We're just going to win right out. You could think it, don't say it. All right. So the great thing is that the British, the greatest power at that time, and you're going to see here these armchair, what I like to call people that are very contrary. They're American contrary. And maybe I can maybe that's a good title for a novel. American Contraria. Like this world where everyone they live in America, they live great in America, they have it the best in the world, and they hate America. They hate the United States. But they won't leave. Oh, they'll go on, I'm going to go visit Europe. Why can't we be very European? So they hate everything American about that, but they're living under it. They're living under it. And they can't see the greatness of our founding fathers in the finding and the faults of Great Britain not looking at this stuff. They always say something like, well, Great Britain was spread out across the whole world. The only reason we lost is because Great Britain was spread too thin. Really? They have loyalists right in the United States. Hundreds of thousands of loyalists that they could have recruited or drafted from and fought with. And, this falls on both sides, too, because I guess there's a movie out there about Washington. I'd like to know how revisionist history it is. But one of the things that Washington had, right, is that he would not use Hessians in our army. The Hessians, that they were mercenaries, German mercenaries, Prussian mercenaries that the British had hired to come over and fight as a professional force. When they were captured, Washington wouldn't allow them into the forces. All right, so when we get back, the last quarter before I go and celebrate the 4th of July.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
The Cardinals beat the Braves 11-5 on Thursday. 15 hits in the win for St. Louis. Jordan Walker homered and drove in 4 runs. Nathan Church hit a tying 2-run homer and a 7-run seventh for the Cards. Atlanta led at 5-3 before the Cardinals rallied. Dominic Smith drove in 3 runs with a double in Atlanta's 5-run first. The Cardinals open a series against the Cubs. Tonight it'll be right-hander Andre Palante starting for the Cards. He's 9-5 on the season. 6-5 win for the Guardians over the White Sox Thursday. That pulls Cleveland even with the Sox atop the American League Central. Brain Rocchio hit a 2-run homer in the 9th to lift the Guardians to the win. The series continues tonight with the White Sox sending lefty Anthony Kay to the mound. He's 6-3. The Guardians scheduled to go with 9-4 righty Gavin Williams. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive.
I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
Straight Talk Wireless presents Pickup Truck Wisdom.
If you're only good to your new friends, you're not going to have any old ones. Straight Talk gets it. That's why new and existing customers get free 5G phones on Verizon's 5G network. Pretty simple, really. You keep good people by being good people.
Find us at straighttalk.com and Walmart. Straight Talk Wireless. Straightforward. Always. Taxes and fees apply. Plan purchase required for free phone offers. Copyright 2026 Verizon.
Veterans and active duty service members. When your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
Real estate, be it residential or commercial, is often a person's most significant and priciest asset. Entering into a contract to buy or sell a real estate property is much more than just filling in the missing blanks on the printed contract. It's wise to hire a lawyer to prepare or review the offer to purchase real estate and take full advantage of his legal expertise. With Mark Sheblow, you will gain an attorney with over 26 years of legal practice and one who has helped thousands of clients to buy or sell their homes or investment property. We will safeguard your interests and might be able to even negotiate a better bargain than a client without proper legal counsel ever could. Oftentimes, a prospective buyer will submit an offer without first consulting an attorney, not realizing that once the offer is accepted by the seller, it becomes a binding contract. And the terms of that contract are not easy to be changed afterwards. Likewise, as a seller, you too will benefit from first consulting an attorney before signing. Feel free to call us for consultation at the law offices of Mark Sheblow at 773-775-5050. Our website is sheblowlawoffice.com. Mark Sheblow can be reached 6 days a week at 773-775-5050.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast, brought to you by KFC. Starting this afternoon, a chance of showers and thunderstorms with highs near 80. Later tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely before midnight with a low around 65. Looking ahead to Sunday, a slight chance of rain showers, then a chance of showers and thunderstorms with highs near 81. Currently, it's 81 and mainly clear. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
Hey, this is Lauren, and a little thing I love about the hash brown scrambled burrito is that it's going to add the protein that you need. The eggs with those crispy nuggets. It's the ultimate combo.
Hi, this is Maya, and a little thing I love about the hash brown scrambled burrito is that it's packed with protein. Having Chick-fil-A chicken in a breakfast burrito is just phenomenal to me. You have the chicken, you have the eggs, and then you add these hash browns. It's just complete, honestly.
Order the Chick-fil-A hash brown scrambled burrito and Simply Orange Juice on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Fitz Bennett's comrades, this Chief Gardner Republic radio show with your co-hosts Paul Burvitt and Mike Tooman every Saturday noon until 2 on WRMN 1410 AM amplitude modulation as opposed to frequency modulation. Yeah, I did work electronic warfare for a while. I had to learn a little bit about wave propagation. All I know is that if you throw 50,000 watts at something, nothing's getting through. Fry that whole spectrum. All right, so 4th of July, independence. 250 years of independence from Great Britain. They tried to get us back in 1812. We, again, Hand it to them over there. I mean, they burnt Washington, D.C. We built a capital. Washington, D.C., we built a whole city just for our government. And we made, because we're a republic, you have to have give and take. So they said, hey, Maryland or Virginia. Now, both are slave states, were at the time, right? But Maryland was kind of northern leaning and Virginia southern leaning. And they say, okay, well, it's not going to be in any state. It's a separate entity, right? Like, what if London was like separate from Great Britain, like totally separate? It's weird things like that. So with our my son said it was a good show, but I really wasn't so interested in watching it. The Man in the High Castle. What if Japan and Germany had won the war? How would our country be? Well, what do you think it would be like if Great Britain had won the war? Right? And we still remained under there. Well, you would have a bunch of lords, lording it all over. The richest guy, buy a lordship, and all of a sudden, I'm the one telling you what to do. I'm the politician. I tell the king to do. I'm the richest guy over here. And no one's moving west of the Appalachians until I moved there first and grabbed the land, and it all belongs to the king, and all belongs to me because I got the special privileges, which would definitely have happened. And then, Great Britain goes on to defeat the French. There's no more Napoleonics and everything. Great Britain expands across everything, and it's just the united world of Great Britain, And to defeat the royalists or loyalists, the people that are royals, love royals, that I see them every once in a while, they have a No King's Day. When did they pick as a No King's Day? I think there's some significance to the date. But they'll have a No King's Day, and these are the ones that are like, oh, King Charles is coming. I have to go see him. That's the same type of people. And I'm like, it wouldn't be a revolution anymore. It would turn into a civil war somehow. But I don't think they would have extended. I mean, they did it for Ireland and Scotland, all right? They had the unification where they had called it the United Kingdom now, where Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Scotland got the same representation in the House of Lords and the House of Commons, all right? So it all became unified. But they weren't going to do that for the United States, for the colonies. One, because there's so much more land, right? When you have a lot of land and you got farmers out there making a lot of food. One thing you need when you make a lot of food is you need a lot of babies because you need more people to work the land, to spread out the land. And now your population is getting bigger. And now your influence is getting bigger. If you don't keep control over that with your lords going in there and thieving from people and stealing their stuff or creating regulations and laws that only benefit them because they're better than us, right? Or they create laws that they don't have to follow because they're better than us. So that's the greatest thing out there, is to take those lords that inherited their ranks and take some little guy like Washington, who started off with a small group of forces, the French and Indian War, got his battle experience, continued to get battle experience, and then fought the British and got a ton of battle, continued to get battle experience, and he handed it all to him. Yes, he had some advisors there, that von Steuben guy, who taught the army to march, and then they say, the head of the U.S. Cavalry was they give him another German name, but everyone knows it was Pulaski. You had guys like Pulaski come over, the Marquis de Lafayette, right? So there's a French guy. And what was he, 16? Lafayette, I think he was 16 years old. But he's rich, right? He's loaded, and he's bored. He's got that ennui. I know what that word means, too. Ennui. It's kind of like a sadness you can't describe. It's a je ne sais quoi. I cannot say. But it's a sadness, and he's bored and comes over, right? And he's got Pulaski there, and he tells Washington, hey, this guy's a great military leader. He was just fighting the Russians over there, right, in Europe. He's a great military leader. He knows what he's doing. But Pulaski was a little bit of a xenophobic, right? Not Pulaski, I mean Washington. But they owed so many favors to this Lafayette guy because he is financing them and everything that they make Pulaski a brigadier general, right? And then Pulaski comes around and saves Washington's butt at Brandywine, right? River. Weird stuff, but goodbye, British. Then, okay, so now fast forward from War of 1812, 115 years, and you got 1917, right? And we go over and fight on the British side. And again, I'm like, we fought the Hessians that were fighting for the British, right? But we never fought the Germans. So why are we fighting on the side of the British? Well, maybe the French too. And the French, again, last time they helped us out was at Yorktown. Because before that, we had fought them. But again, we fought the British, the French, and Indian War. We fought the French and Indian War. We fought the British during the Revolutionary War and War of 1812. And all of a sudden, we're bailing them both out in World War I. And that comes down to another thing, trade. So, and that's another thing the British didn't understand. You can't force someone to trade with you at gunpoint. You kind of can. It's called theft. It's called armed robbery. I'm going to take everything you have, and I'm going to give you the stick of gum. I think it's a fair trade because I'm armed, you're not. It was barter. Your Honor, it wasn't robbery. It was fair trade. He really wanted that stick of gum, and I really wanted the $1,000 in cash he was carrying in his Rolex watch. Would he have given it to me if I didn't have the gun on him? Who knows, Your Honor? The gun was there, but he still gave it to me. I didn't have to shoot him, right? So, fair trade. I had to shot him, that's aggravated battery. That's a little different. The British tried that with us, right? It didn't work out. They said, we're gonna blockade you. We're not gonna let you land anything in Boston, anything there, everything there. And we're like, fine, we're just not gonna buy your stuff. It didn't work well for them. Now, so after all this stuff, and if you, I'm not gonna read it to you, but you really have to, everyone talks about the two most famous U.S. documents, which are the Declaration of Independence, followed up by the Constitution. But no one talks about the Declarations of Rights and Grievances. You think they got that, Seinfeld got that for Festivus? You know, the airing of grievances. The official airing. Well, we tried that with the British. That's and it says exactly why we don't want to be part of you. If the British had answered that point by point and tried to even out the grievances, it would have been good. It probably would have taken several more years, longer years. They could have dragged it out. Or it might have been perfect for them. Because these were... A lot of people talk about warmongering and everything, but if you read the Declarations of Rights and Grievances and the petition to the Grand American Continental Congress to the King's Most Excellent Majesty, or they're starting it out, kissing his butt. Call him, oh, you're the most pretty person in the world, you're the most smartest person in the world. You're excellent majesty. Here's our grievances. We know it's not you, it's your peeps why don't you slap your peeps around and bring them around, to help us out? No. They ignore it. And this goes on. So it's almost, and I'm going to get a little thing. All right. So what would have hurt them to address these grievances? They may have had, hey, it's June 14th, 15th, 1775. I have a standing army now. I could defend the frontier from the Native American incursion or whatever. So the British could pull all their forces out, right? I could defend from the French or the Spanish. Now you go back to Europe with all your forces, and you don't have to cross the ocean with all these things and go fight them, right? So could it help them out? Yes. But destiny. Did it have to happen this way? It was the reason. All right, so, right. Time to get biblical. Everyone's seen everyone's seen the 10 Commandments, and everyone knows about the plagues, right? And what does it say that God did to Pharaoh? God hardened Pharaoh's heart so that Pharaoh would not let these guys go. Right? They're asking to get let go. We don't want to work for you anymore. We got this powerful God. We want to follow him. He tells us we should go there. And if you don't let us go, he's going to get these plagues. And after the first plague, maybe Pharaoh could have gone, oh, okay, I'm done. You go. But it took 7 plagues because God displayed his power, right? And in order to display the power, he had to harden Pharaoh's heart so he could display all of his power. Well, I'm looking at this like the declarations of rights and grievances made perfect sense to me. I says, why didn't the king listen to this? Because his heart was hardened. So that's almost like, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it, and no one's going to call me on this. This is great because I'm trying to a little bit. God, this was our destiny. This was God's destiny that the United States should exist, right? That the monarchy should fall, that the republic should stand. That the republic needed to be in place to keep these monarchies from ruling the world or one man like that, that the grace is on all the humans, not on just one guy that was born to another king or another queen or whatever, and he suddenly gets all the grace of God by divine right. It happened Eastern Europe, right? So the Poles elected their kings. They elected their kings, right? They elected them. So when Vladislav dies, they elect Casimir in. But both Casimir and Carl Gustav of Sweden are they're cousins, but they're both grandsons of Vladislav, right? But Carl Gustav's the older grandson, so he thinks by divine right that he should inherit the Polish crown, the Kingdom of Poland. Oh, look at. Who is she?
That's Cecilia.
Hi, Cecilia. She's very cute. Oh, she's got a nice looking dog, too. Very nice dog. Yeah. Thank you. She loves me. She's wearing a Legion shirt. Oh, that's First Responder Fest. Yeah. We like Cecilia. All right. So, yeah, I got the fans out. So, the biblicalness of it, okay, so Carl Gustav, now he says, okay, I'm going to be king of Poland, and he invades, and he's got this great army and everything, but then they have the arrogance to attack Częstochowa, and then everything goes wrong for them from there, and he is kicked out of Europe. His army's decimated, and Poland comes out literally stronger, right? Having defeated the greatest land army known to man at the time, the Swedish army. You wouldn't think it, but yeah, they were pretty bad. So, and again, that's like destiny. That's like destiny. Okay, well, the polls are kind of got it here where, they're electing a king. He isn't born, inherited, but most of these guys were from the nobility and royalty and everything that, it's just a way to pass it on. But then we go over for the great experiment into the United States in the Constitution and an elected president. And when they offered king to my man George Washington, right, who I'll forgive him because, Freemasonry, but I'll forgive him, right? He turns down being a king. He says, that's not what this is. That's exactly the opposite of what this is about. He didn't even want to be president. He says, but here you got a great charismatic leader, great military leader, and here's a guy that's got enough backing of the. If you want to make politicians do anything, what do you need? You need the backing of the public. If the public hates you, they're going to laugh at you. They're going to ignore you. You have no influence. George Washington, there's the hero of the time, right? So when he's telling these senators, the Constitution's there, then you got the Senate, you got the House of Representatives, you got the Supreme Court. He's a very popular president. So he can enforce the Constitution without having people. It's like, okay, we got half of the senators are going to vote for it. The other half are not going to vote for it. Or it's like we don't even have a tiebreaker here. What do we do? Well, you get rid of one of them. All you need to get rid of one on the other side. Disappear him. Make sure he doesn't show up for the vote. Hey, you won. But he wouldn't have to do that, because they'd be so afraid to go against him on that. Now, is that a dictatorship? No. When you are ruling by the will of the people through a republic, all right, that's not a dictatorship. A dictatorship is you say you have the will of the people and you do whatever you want because the will of the people that you have are the ones you gave the guns to and no one else got the guns. So you can enforce your will on them because they can't enforce their will on yours, which comes to the Second Amendment. And even George, going back, I'm obviously a pro-Second Amendment guy. Again, a militia, British, right? And they understood this when they wrote the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, that the reason we were able to overthrow the British is because the British required us to have guns. They did. And then they tried to take them away. But they'd already trained us up in the French and Indian Wars on how to use them. So we had a well-regulated militia that just was able to form a standing army and throw the British out. So now, having a well-regulated militia and armed citizenry that I don't think is very likely that'll form a counter-standing army to throw the government out. But if enough governors didn't like the federal government and they were able to take the National Guard, and enough National Guard members were like, hey, we agree that the government's got out of control, that my oath to the Constitution means that I have to overthrow the government here or throw this guy out because he got in through illegal means or he won't leave or something like, it's been proven, or he's not, all that stuff. Well, that's part of where you're going to have the federal government. Now you got a big federal standing army, all right? But the National Guard still outnumbers them. Getting around to it, working around in circles. But the 4th of July, educated men, Declaration of Independence. Now, what did the British call it? You recall? Because they had a real nasty name for the 4th of July. And again, the nastier they think about it, the better a victory it was, right? So it's like talking trash about your opponent, right? Well, they beat you. Well, only because they didn't feel pain as much. Okay, whatever.
Oh, they say, is it Happy Treason Day?
Treason Day. Treason. Yeah, treason. Too bad. The second they signed the Treaty of Paris in 1783, it was no longer treason. They acknowledged an independent country. And when they acknowledged that independent country, they acknowledged the rights of that country to be an independent country existed when they went to war with it. So they were fighting the people on the right side, and I gotta say, it's biblical, it's fate, it's kismet, it's whatever you want to say. It's the will of God, or inshallah, a little phrase I learned in Afghanistan there. We're the greatest country on God's green earth, and God wants us to be the greatest country. He wants us to be the greatest. I think God likes a Republican form of government. I think God likes the fact that everyone should be treated equal. Because again, I also believe that God created everyone equal. But he gave some gifts to some gifts to others. It's how you use those gifts. It's how you deal down. And if some people are not as well gifted, then it's an availability for other people to show their gifts by helping them out. And I think we do that the best. I think we treat our disenfranchised, I think we treat our, and I'm trying to think of a better word for disenfranchised, are disabled, right? Are people that aren't able to care for themselves. I think the United States treats them the best. It's like, what did you do? Get away from me, because when I was hungry, you didn't give me anything to eat, right? Now, I'm not talking about public aid, because even then, look at the acts, right? Am I getting too holy roller? No, you're fine. What did Peter say? Was it Peter or Paul? I think it was Peter. He says, man, if they don't work, don't feed them. I mean, right there. It's like, oh, I'm poor, I'm hungry. Dude, you got 2 arms, 2 legs. You're physically capable of doing work. Even if it's just digging a ditch, you are physically capable of that. Go out and work for your bread. But, oh, no, I can't do that. I got sadness. I got sadness, too. But even then, we treat that better than any other thing in the world. I think God created the United States of America. I think we're looking into the future. There's going to be some massive reason God created the United States of America. And God takes his time showing his reasons. It's only 250 years. See you in another 50 for the 300th. And that's going to be a hoot. I'll be 60. I'll be 112 years old. I'll be 112 years old. I am going to be here for that. Maybe not on this station. If I'm 112, I'm taking the time slot. I'm taking the Saturday time slot when I'm 112. Just to say, 300th, 4th of July. All right. Peace out. Happy 4th of July. Don't get hurt. Don't get dead.
You from living the life you love? At St. Joseph Hospital in Elgin, our spine specialists help patients get back to moving.